Hi, my name is Eric White. I'm doing a school book report, and this is my first one. So I'm going to be doing Jack, Jack and the Magnificent Ugly Stick by Josh Goudie and art by Craig Goudie. And I hope you enjoy the interview. How long have you been writing your books?
I've been writing different books for about 12 years now. This book took me about a year to write, and then a year before it came out. I had to ask everyone who's in the book if they would be comfortable with us drawing them in. So I have a text for them to see, and then we gave them a little peek at that, so then they could say, yeah, we think that's something I'd like to be a part of. I'd like to lend my face to this book. And then it was about a year to get the pictures together, it all printed off and everything like that. So a book takes about at least a year, often two, before it's out on the shelves. There's a lot of hands involved because if I write all of my words down, then someone else has to take them and read them and think, okay, how do I want the pictures to look? And then they'll draw them out, and then we have to take it to a publisher who they'll take a look at it and say, how do we want this to look as a finished product, like on the pages? What kind of paper do we want to use? What kind of cover do we want it to have? And then they have to send it off to a factory that makes the books. It takes a bit of time. It takes a couple, certainly a year, I would say.
Did you ever make a ugly stick?
I have made a couple ugly sticks since this book came out. I made one when I was, right before this book came out, I was in Toronto. So I had to try and make an ugly stick in Toronto, which is a lot harder than you would think because I couldn't find one of those big cans anywhere. Everything in Toronto is very small. There's a lot of small apartments, small cars, small cans at the grocery store. So I've made a couple ugly sticks. I've made one up in Toronto. I try to make one every time I go into a school reading. They tend to get broken because everyone wants to play with it and bang on it. And by the end of the day, after 30 kids have had a smack on it, it's falling apart. So I've made a couple over the years. Have you made one?
One time I was at daycare and I had an old boot.
Yeah.
And my teacher said, "Why don't you make a ugly stick?" Then I was like, "No." then then I made a excuse, and the excuse was I have a fashion boot contest to go to, so I can't put a hole in this boot.
That's true. Once you make an ugly stick, your boot's ruined. So you got to be careful choosing your boots.
Why did you dedicate the book to Ron Hines?
Well, my first book came out, I dedicated it to someone, or actually to my grandparents, because my grandparents, I think, made me really have an interest in stories. Both grandfathers especially are quite poetic in the way they talk. But I dedicated this one to Ron Hines because we involved a lot of other musicians. You know, we involved Matthew and the Fortunate Ones and the Ones, and I thought it'd be nice to dedicate it to someone who would be in the spirit of everyone, who we would all like this project to be for someone. And I thought Ron Hines was a good person. I know he's been influenced everyone in the book. And it was and unfortunately it was right around the time that Ron passed away. And so I thought it was a nice little gesture to say, from all of us to you, and to lead the next generation into maybe becoming curious about his music, which I think meant quite a lot to all of us.
What is your favorite musician?
My favorite musician? Oh my goodness, that is a tricky one. I know the correct answer is to say everyone from the... Sorry?
Instrument.
Oh, what is my favorite musical instrument? I feel like I should say the drums because that's the only instrument I can play. I've tried to play a lot of instruments over the years. I've tried to play guitar. I've tried to play the mandolin. I find I can't get my hands, my fingers aren't precise enough to land on the keys. So it's definitely not guitar or mandolin. I've written those off completely. I grew up playing piano. I really miss playing piano. I, yeah, I really like the. I'll say piano. What's your favorite instrument?
About ukulele and piano.
Oh, ukulele. I like the ukulele. I've heard Catherine from the Fortunate Ones. The last time I was talking to her, I was telling her that I was trying to learn the mandolin, and she said that's really hard. But the ukulele is probably like a good instrument to start with. Do you play?
I practice sometimes.
Nice.
Why did you pick those musicians in the book?
I picked them because for a couple of reasons. I really like all of their music. I wouldn't have picked anyone who wasn't a big fan of their music. But they've also oddly come into my life at different points in my life. Like Matthew and I grew up together. We went to school together, in like elementary school, primary school. Andrew and I and your dad, we went to college together, and Andrew and I were roommates, and we've been friends since then. And Jerry from the Ones, she and I used to work together at a restaurant years ago. And so we've become friends along the way, but I've also just really, really liked their music. And I just thought it would be fun to, if we're doing a project about musicians, why not use people that, it would be a fun thing to do together. And so we could kind of become excited about it all together.
When you wrote Jack and the Hurricane, he was like going to a birthday party.
That's right.
And the girl, she had red hair. I'm just wondering is this the girl?
The girl in the first book is Jack's cousin, and we were planning to have her in the last page with all the dancing, but I think maybe she got taken out so everyone could have a dance partner. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't see her there now. But yeah, that's the same girl. We've tried to have little continuity things along the way. There was a spider in the first book, and I think if you look through that one carefully enough, you'll see it, because when we did it in school reading, I don't even know where it is, but one of the students said he wanted to know more about the spider. He was like, we read the book, all he cared about was the spider on the first page of Jack and the Hurricane. So I think Dad stuck him in somewhere in the second book just for that student. I don't know if anyone's ever found it.
Are you going to write another book?
Yes, but maybe not another Jack book, at least not for a little while. He might make a little appearance in one. One's a collection of spooky poetry, so we'll see if maybe one of the poems I can weasel him back in. But yeah, there should be things coming soon, but not a Jack book at the moment, but maybe down the road.
That's all my questions. Thank you for doing the interview with me.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having me on your program.